Welcome to the Black Duck Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Wilkins. I'm excited to have you join me as I speak with a fascinating collection of folks, all of whom have in common that they've made a way for themselves by finding an intersection between thoughtful consideration and the tactile work of getting their hands dirty. This is an examination of intention, capability, and craft. It's where philosophy meets the blue-collar work ethic and where I find real value. The Black Duck Revival Podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Hunters of Color. Hunters of Color is a 501c3 nonprofit. They're the only nationwide hunting nonprofit led by BIPOC for BIPOC. They're working on increasing Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color participation in hunting for the sake of conservation, food sovereignty, and to preserve our ancestral traditions. And like I told y'all, the last couple of episodes, they've got a really cool raffle going on that you need to take advantage of really soon because I believe the drawing will be held on March 18th. Hunters of Color and the Oregon chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is proud to announce that they'll be donating 100% of the proceeds of this raffle to benefit hunters in Oregon. It'll be a 3-day guided bull elk rifle hunt for one hunter on the 33,000-acre Zumwalt Prairie Preserve in Northeast Oregon during the fall 2023 season. This includes lodging on location at the preserve. The hunter may bring up to 2 non-hunting guests. It's entirely on foot and hunters should be in good physical condition. The property contains steep slopes and can be physically challenging to hunt. Recently, hunter success rates have been close to 100% with world-class bulls for this tag. Look, this is a great deal. Tickets are $25 or you can get 5 for $100. They're only going to sell a total of 2,500 tickets. This is a really coveted tag. I think there's only like 6 of them every year. 2 of them go to the general population there in Oregon and 4 of them are donated to non-profit organizations to raise money for conservation. And look, normally this is a tag that can go from $40,000 all the way up to $90,000. So you could pay $25 and get a hell of a bull elk hunt with success rates hovering around that 100% mark, which is about as good a rate as you can get when you're dealing with the wilds and hunting. So if you're interested in checking that raffle out, you can just go to the Hunters of Color Instagram page and follow the link there in their bio. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Black Duck Revival Podcast. This week I am joined by Tawney. Land is the president and CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. That is a non-profit, conservation-minded organization based here in these United States, the purpose of which is to preserve and hopefully even expand our access to those wild places in the woods and the waters throughout North America, and to keep those accessible for not just hiking and bike riding and horseback riding, but for hunting and fishing, which is, one of the things, the pursuits that, for better or worse, has shaped this country. Land was in Arkansas for the Black Bear Bonanza. It was the second year that event has taken place up in Northwest Arkansas, put on by the Arkansas chapter of BHA. And I was able to steal away with Land the evening before the Bonanza took place. I was over at my buddy James Brandenburg's house, and we recorded a podcast there. And then I stayed up and made bear fat chocolate chip cookies and a bunch of bear tamales and took them to the Bonanza the next day. And man, I had a good time, dude. I was only there for a couple hours, but got to present. Man, there was a ton of folks there. Folks should be proud of themselves. They really should be. That was a hell of an event that got put on. But anyway, man, so I got this opportunity to talk to Land, who's a really interesting dude, and man, he was like really candid, and man, I really enjoyed the conversation. I felt like I knew a bit more about who this dude was, because especially in the circles that I run in, and the more that I'm out west hunting and in Montana, like land is a known kind of force, right? It was fun to kind of clear up a few of the misconceptions that maybe are out there about him, and also just talk about his approach to conservation and his family's history in that realm, and just kind of his personal ethos. And man, it was a good convo. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation with Land Tawney. Hey, and welcome back to the podcast, folks. This week, I find myself in Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville to be exact, at the home of one James Brandenburg, a good friend and former guest on this podcast. And I'm here at James's house because I got to make a bunch of black bear tamales and cookies with the bear fat for the Black Bear Bonanza tomorrow here in Bentonville. That'll be the 4th of March. But I'm availing myself of the opportunity to talk to Land Tawney, who is, I'll tell you what I think your position is, and then you correct me. But are you the president, CEO of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers?
You got it right, the president and CEO.
There you go.
Double duty.
And so, I mean, actually, there's an ad on this podcast talking about Oregon Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. So probably a lot of the folks that listen to this podcast are aware of BHA, but why don't you give like the elevator pitch about what BHA is, and we'll get into more specifics.
Sweet. So BHA is a fairly young organization. We've only been around since 2004. And when those folks were sitting around that original campfire, they looked at all the other organizations that are out there doing amazing work. Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, the Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation, list kind of goes on. But nobody was really focused on public lands and public waters. So that was the impetus of this organization to start, was to make sure you have access to public lands and waters, and then the quality efficient wildlife habitat when you get there. So our work ranges from doing on-the-ground projects at a local level, doing cleanups, riparian zone restoration, trail maintenance, to working with the local Fish and Game Commission, to working with state legislatures, all the way out to Washington, D.C. But again, that whole theme is always making sure that we have access to public lands and waters, and then the fish wildlife habitat when we get there. And we're very lucky in this country. We're different than any other country in the world. We have 640 million acres of federally managed public lands that belongs to all of us. And so we want to make sure that you have access to those places, but make sure that you have the quality fish and wildlife habitat when you get there.
And that's just federal land, right? That's not
state at all.
Yeah.
So like you add state on there, and I wish I had that stat in the back of my head. I was just in Pennsylvania, and they have got like 3.3 million acres of state land that they manage there that's open to hunting and fishing. And so each state has their own little pocket of state land too.
Yeah, that's an important distinction to make with how hunting / conservation works in America, bigger kind of North America, right? Which is very different than, I always tell people about, because folks want to put, basically folks that aren't immersed in hunting as part of their life, like they put a very broad stroke when painting hunting, right? So that's like everything from, like killing lions in Africa to like blowgun hunting, this, that. I mean, and while that is all hunting, it's all very different, right? So like I think of the king's deer, right? Mm-hmm. Like that Western European model, right? Where this is like an organized, I think that's where the idea of it being a sport kind of come into it, right? Mm-hmm. There's like a ritualistic way it goes about. There's a gamekeeper, like that's literally a person it's like a private forester, right? Taking care of the area and managing it for drives and whatever. And that's very different than what we have in America, where I think that we probably also inspired by the way this country was founded, in modernity anyway. The idea of like European westward expansion and idea of people like Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett, right, and Lewis and Clark. But yeah, that we live in a place where you can like go up in the mountains and like just be in the mountains, right? And like, I mean, there's rules and stuff, but you could kill an animal up there and live on it and camp out there. And I mean, there's people living in teepees and stuff traveling around in Montana, right?
I mean, it's 16 days that you can be on the same spot on public land camping before you have to move. Now, I'm sure there's some people that are way back in the woods that are spending a little bit more than 16 days in one spot. But that ability, I think, not only to have access to those public lands, but then you mentioned like the public wildlife and that Western kind of European model. That wildlife belongs to individuals, which is usually the wealthy elite and not the people. And so, again, in this kind of modern, as you described, kind of America, which is, not that old, and even like the conservation and kind of this wildlife belonging to the people. I think there was a Supreme Court case back in 1842 that established that wildlife belonged to the people. And it was this oysterman in New Jersey that was taking oysters out of the river. Private landowner had gotten a king's grant when they settled over here from England that it said he owned the fish and the wildlife and the birds that were on that property. And so he thought that those shellfish, those oysters, belonged to him. Well, this oysterman was out there taking them, and they got in this big dispute. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, no, actually, they belong to the people. And that's really what set this thing in motion, that the wildlife belonged to the people. And then later, with Roosevelt in particular and the establishment of a lot of our public lands when he was the president, that's where like the land then belonged to the people too. And that's that modern kind of way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah, which is, I bet you the public way that a lot of people interact with it would be like going to Yellowstone or something, right? But I think people, and I'll just speak to the place I know the best, which is Arkansas, right? Arkansas is a place, it's different because it's in the southeast, but it's public land-wise, it's really more aligned with like Western states, right? Like there's just a tremendous millions and millions of publicly accessible acres in Arkansas. So much so that there's like cultures that have built up around it, like originally, like hunting ducks in the timber, right? In Arkansas, that was a purely public land sort of deal. And now we do deal with like some control structures, and you'll hear people talk about like putting the boards in on Bayou Meta, like to hold the water, but it didn't used to be that, right? It was kind of this, like, what we were talking about earlier, like Newcomb. This is like Newcomb's territory, right? This is like hillbilly stuff, right? My stuff is more like Delta rednecks, right? And I mean that not as a pejorative. I mean that in the best possible way. Just like country people from that region. And yeah, like this whole niche culture of duck hunting on public land, and like what a ingrained sense of the culture it is in those parts of the state. But I bet you that folks aren't really, it's just something that's there, and I've talked about this a bit on the podcast, but like I think that Arkansas's license prices are woefully low, the lowest in the nation. It's like $35, man. It's like for your fishing and your deer and a bear, right? And when they tried to get a few extra dollars, the Game and Fish did last year. On a fishing license the price hasn't changed since like 83. And the legislature fought it tooth and nail. And I don't think they're thinking about the fact that this is like, it doesn't magically, like the roads don't magically get maintained, right? Like there's financial investment that has to go into this stuff. But it is, and I didn't really mean to get off on this tangent, but I'm just saying like here in this state, I think that too often, we don't know how good we have it because we don't, you could never leave Arkansas. You could be a hell of a hunter and an angler and never leave Arkansas and never be at a want for really cool opportunities. So I think a lot of people don't, and they don't know it's not like this. If you just go cross our southern border into Texas, it ain't like here.
Yeah, I think people take it for granted, right?
Yeah, I danced around that.
But I also, and I'm here and I'm finding out about your stream access laws too, which are absolutely amazing. And I think that idea that you're describing, when people really don't, they take it for granted because nobody's really even told them on where that came from necessarily,
sure.
Right? And why that opportunity is there for them, and that it didn't happen by accident. And by the way, we have to stay engaged, or those things can change, right? They can either be privatized, or the management can change on those federal public lands, or even on those state lands. And so it's about being engaged. But I think that complacency is one that I always struggle with, because it doesn't take much, to really change what we all have. And then if by the time maybe some people figure out that it's being taken away from us, it's probably too late. And so we have to stay constantly vigilant. You talk about the legislature, right? This happens all over the country. And I'm like, what's an extra $3? And we can't pay that extra $5. And like, you can't even go to McDonald's and spend that right now, right? And you can spend way more than that. And so, like, to me, these opportunities that we have, how dang lucky are we? And the only way we're going to maintain them is by caring, feeding them, and being stewards of that land. And I think that when people, it's very short-sighted, right? It's like this tax or whatever on the people, that increase of the license fees, and they don't know where that money is going necessarily. And I think that we could do a better job talking about where that money goes, and so that they can see that investment, and so that they feel comfortable wanting to spend more money, so hopefully making it better.
Yeah, and look, you're not going to get everybody. I mean, because also here, I think Arkansas ingrained in the culture here, because it's not a place, one, it's kind of insular, but it's also a place that people from other states don't really think about, right? So I think there's a bit of a, it's like that drive-by trucker song, they're like, we ain't never gonna change, we ain't doing nothing wrong. Like, there's just a kind of this is us kind of mentality, and folks, there is a distrust of law enforcement, and I think just enforcement in general, which, I mean, look, dude, I get it. I'm not going to go too far into that, but I get it. But I also know that, dude, Arkansas is so easy. It's so cheap. I'm not getting harassed by wardens all the time here. Like, I've encountered a game warden twice. And it's pretty easy to play by the rules, and this is just not a place where it's arduous. It's not arduous to be a hunter or to be an angler or to identify as that. I've never felt like I had to hide what I was doing, because it was going to mess up opportunities for me in the community, which I gather in other places is not the case, right? I gather that in other places, hunters feel persecuted. Mm-hmm. And I've never felt that way, right? Like, it's always been treated as a point of interest, at the very least a novelty to people.
Long-standing part of the culture.
Yeah. I mean, which I would imagine would be the same. You born and bred in Montana?
I am.
So, like, even with the changes that I'm sure you've seen in the last decade or 2 decades, right? Like, that's still part of the culture.
I mean, we have, in Montana, 20% of the people hunt, and then another, 25 to 30% fish. So I always say it's like over half the people hunt and fish, knowing that a lot of people do both. But yeah, it's part of our culture, and I think this damn TV show Yellowstone is driving all these people to Montana right now. First we had River Runs Through It back when I was in high school, or ending up in high school. Did you all see a push of people moving? Yeah.
Wow.
And I think not even just a push of people moving, but a bunch more people that wanted to be Brad Pitt and do that shadow casting, they're not even like even catching fish. They just look real good when they're out there, But this Yellowstone thing, I think it's the #1 TV show in the world, and it's being seen by all these people. So we're getting a huge influx of people coming into Montana right now. And Is that changing the culture? I would say a little bit, which is hard to see. Our culture has probably been changing, for, ever in Montana anyways. But it does feel like there's that influx. But I think that, that a lot of people are moving to Montana for those open spaces, for those opportunities, which I think is probably happening here in Arkansas too, like Northwest Arkansas.
This part of Arkansas for sure.
Yeah, and I'm hearing it, like, while I'm here, I'm hearing about like this, the kind of the pressure that creates, which I totally understand. And people are coming here for the right reasons because they want to get out and touch and feel like all these opportunities that you were talking about. But I think the difficulty is, how do you maintain the quality fish and wildlife habitat that I was talking about earlier, and then the quality of experiences out there, right? And, I think everybody's had a fishing spot, everybody's had a hunting spot that's been ruined because of pressure.
Sure.
And, we can complain about that, or, as you just described, there's so many things that you can do in this state and just go find another spot, like that's the embarrassment of riches that we have because of public land and because of public water.
Yeah, man, and I totally get the inclination. Like, I gave Brandenburg and his boy a couple holes this year. Mm-hmm. Like, they stayed up at one of my places in Brinkley, and I gave them a couple holes. And you know what? It was like, man, I don't have to be so guarded about this anymore. These are people I like, mm-hmm. like, and I would want them to go here and use these things, But shit, man, that probably took 4 years. I was telling Brandenburg, I was like, dude, don't you ever come back to this place. Yeah. I said, don't you tell anybody about it. Yeah. I said, if I find out you're in here without asking me first, man, we got a problem, Yeah. But he gets the code, right? And so, yeah, man, like, dude, nothing. That's the trade-off with something being public, right? Mm-hmm. Is it can be yours, but you still have to share it, And sometimes sharing stuff means you got to let it go, and because maybe some folks do get in there and just beat it up, or it was just never anybody there. Now just a truck being at the gate ruins the experience for you.
Totally.
You just got to go find another place.
You got to outlive the bastard sometimes too. I had a spot, same thing. Take this guy to a hole that I had figured out back in Montana, western Montana, duck mm-hmm. hole. Yeah. We don't have a huge flyway there, so sure. Like, when you find it, like, it's
special, yeah.
Very special. Showed him, said, I haven't told him you can come back here by yourself, just don't bring anybody else. Yeah. 2 weeks later, show up, and there's like 6 trucks there, and they're just hammering the birds. Did that. That spot was probably ruined for a decade. Mm-hmm. Then they were there at school. They moved away. I wasn't friends with that kid anymore. Yeah. But they stopped using that spot. This last year, I went in there, and we had one of my best days waterfowling. But it took, I watched that spot for probably a week before I actually went in and hunted it. But it took some time for that place to recover, but it came back too, right? And so, I had gone and looked and found other places. I mean, OnX is one of these most amazing things now, right? For sure. You can go find places that I never even knew that I could get to. On the flip side of that, other people can use OnX too, and they can find some of these spots, right? And so I think it's just, I don't know. I try not to get too bent out of shape, but I guard them a little bit and try to introduce people that, like you said, get the code.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, I don't know, dude. Like, the alternative is lock some stuff up for yourself, right? There's trade-offs to that. And honestly, my opinion on that, like, it's so situational, and it's so it's so influenced by like how good I have it that season, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there still is. I think in the scheme of things, we're at like hunters are 9% of the American population. Like, ultimately, it's still a niche thing. Mm-hmm. You might have to go a little further, but that's kind of where all the best hunts are, right? Like, even if you live in a cool place, getting a little bit further away from everybody else that's what I'm looking for, right? Like, I want to pretend I'm Daniel Boone, right? Like, I don't want to be thinking about other people.
Totally.
I just want to immerse myself in what I'm doing. And sometimes that means like that I go to what would seem to be less than stellar habitat. But, lack of pressure can help a place out. So
a little bit of effort, right, gets you away. Like a lot of, that whole idea of you get away like more than a mile from a road.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody's going to do that work after that, right? And so maybe it is not the greatest habitat, or maybe, like you find some hole or you find some opportunity. I hunt a lot of elk and deer back home, and like that idea of just getting a little bit farther and always wanting to see what's over the next ridge. And that's that idea of public land. Like you talked about, locking something up. Well, that would most likely be private land, right? Not a bad thing. I'm not against private land hunting at all. But then you're kind of stuck on that spot, right? Like that's your spot. Where on public land, like I can explore and explore and explore and explore. And to me, that's what's exciting to me. And that like that sticking with that Daniel Boone kind of thing is just like exploring and challenging yourself and like having this adventure that you never, like these places that you've never seen before is kind of fun. I mean, I have plenty of places that I go back and it feels like home, because I've been going to them for my entire life.
Yeah.
But finding those new spots is almost more exciting sometimes, just because they're out there and they just take some time and effort to go see.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in both, right?
Oh, totally.
Dude, I would love to have, a little timber hole that I could take my kids to, or hunt 10 times a year and just always be able to go in there and shoot a few birds, and then the kids could do it. I mean, that would be amazing, right? But there's other stuff too, right? Like we can always go to the same stretch of water and catch fish, or we can always we can work around the seasons. Like, there's never – is there – I guess there's like a window. There's a window between the end of turkey season. Wait. There might not be any time of the year that you couldn't be hunting an animal. Like you can definitely always fish, but in Arkansas, like, yeah, I think squirrel season would close, then you can hunt turkeys, and then that ends, you can get back on squirrels. I mean, it's a pretty good deal, right?
It's an amazing deal. Come on.
Man, I'm underselling it. It definitely changed how my life has worked out. So here's the deal, man. I don't actually know just a shit ton about you, right? Like I'd say the two biggest things I know is that your dad was like a pretty known person in the West and within conservation, right?
Both he and my mom were, but I think my dad, before he passed away, he was the lawyer for the Elk Foundation. So when they started in '85, he wrote their articles of incorporation and bylaws and stuff, and then he passed away in '95, so we had 10 years with him. But I think, in Montana in particular, my dad was known, but I think through the Elk Foundation circles, they did a lot of work initially and still to this day, to protect elk habitat. And my dad was right in the middle of that.
And then what about your mom?
So they were both the first full-time conservation lobbyists at the state legislature in Montana. And so they would go to the state legislature every 2 years. Our legislature runs every 2 years, and they would lobby on behalf of conservation. And so my mom today helps run a foundation that gives out small grants in Montana to all these different nonprofit organizations in Montana that work on conservation. So she's still heavily involved. My sister worked for Ducks Unlimited for a while out in Washington, D.C. Now she runs Montana Conservation Voters back in Montana. And so there's like this thing that was in the water, at our house or something that my parents started. And, both of them, that's probably why I'm doing what I'm doing today. But I wouldn't have got there, I don't think. I've talked about it a couple of times, but my dad passed away in '95 when I was 19. And when that happened, I was screwing around, going to school out in Seattle, chasing girls, having a good time. And then all of a sudden stuff got real serious when he passed away. And I came home, and I didn't know that I'd be doing conservation in a big way, the way I am right now at that point, but I know I wanted to do something. And I think, my parents both set me on that path, and my mom today, I have conversations with her all the time about, this big thing that's conservation that has so many different nuances to it. But I feel very lucky to have grown up in a family that valued conservation.
Yeah, man. It kind of sounds like it became the family business.
A little bit. I've got another sister who's a school teacher, and she's rad. She's amazing. But it's the family business. I mean, I think that In some ways, yes. And maybe it stops with us. I don't know. I got 2 young kids. Maybe they'll get into conservation. I don't know.
What, but I mean, so they were involved in this. I mean, to give you the name Land, right? Like, that's got to be, is that a family name or is that just influenced by what they valued?
So I changed my name when I got this job.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding. Come on.
Oh,
man.
I was like, what? This is the weirdest shit ever, man.
No, so you know who Charles Lindbergh was?
Yeah. Spirit of St. Louis.
Yes. Flew across the Atlantic Ocean, first transcontinental flight. He has a son named Land Lindbergh that lives in Montana in the Blackfoot Valley, which is just outside of Missoula.
Not the one that was kidnapped.
No, not the one that was kidnapped. And so good friends of my family, and so I'm named after him.
Really?
But at the same time, they were the first full-time conservation lobbyists at the state legislature, and so knowing Land Lindbergh and then doing the work that they were doing, it just kind of fit. And so that's how it was actually named.
That's interesting. Okay, so let's reference that, right? So I took notice, you're wearing a flat brim black St. Louis Cardinals hat right now. And we just referenced the Spirit of St. Louis.
Yeah.
So what's the allegiance to the Cardinals?
Love it. So grew up in Missoula, Montana, and so Mariners are a long ways away in Seattle. You got the Colorado Rockies that are probably close, but they're pretty far away. But as I was telling you about my dad working for the Elk Foundation, their first big check they ever got was from Budweiser, and it was for $500,000 for a purchase outside of Yellowstone Park for elk migration. So as my dad was going down to St. Louis and doing these deals, he would go to Cardinals games, and he would bring back baseball cards for me as a young kid. One of them was signed by Ozzie Smith, the famous shortstop. So at that point, I was just hooked. And so I've always been a St. Louis Cardinal fan since then. And I've never even been to a baseball game there, which is like totally crazy to me.
And you missed the old Busch Stadium.
Totally.
Which was still has like a really fond place in my heart, man.
It does.
But like the new stadium was like, as far as being able to see, dude, those nosebleed seats in the old stadium were, but they used to give them to you. So did you know I'm from St. Louis?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from there.
This is okay.
You're like, why do you? Yeah. That's where I'm from, man.
Okay.
Yeah, like we used to grow up. I mean, you'd see Ozzie Smith, like just bump into him at the, whatever, the grocery store.
No way.
Whatever. Yeah. I saw.
Would he do a backflip there too?
No. My dad took me to see the last game he ever played.
Okay.
But in St. Louis, dude, like if you got straight A's in grade school, you got like 2 free Cardinals tickets.
Cool.
So we used to go,
So you're a good student just for that?
Just the nosebleeds, man.
Yeah.
I was pretty good until high school, man, and then it all went awry. Okay, so then the other thing I know, right? It's kind of controversial.
Oh boy.
So I'd say that the number one complaint I've heard about BHA in Arkansas is that what it really all comes down to is that you had something to do with Obama, right? So, and it's there's some sort of infiltrators, man, communist or something. But so, was it like you were the head of sportsmen for Obama when he was running, or what was going on?
No, so I had some. Just I'll step back 1 second.
Okay.
So, my dad was a lawyer for the Elk Foundation.
Yeah.
Did a lot of great work in conservation in Montana, as my mom did. My dad was also the executive director of the Democratic Party for 5 years in Montana as well.
Okay.
So that conservation kind of and Democrat-like thing is also a household I grew up in, just so we're clear. The Elk Foundation does amazing work, but my dad was a Democrat. Let's just put that out there. So I had some friends that were actually running sportsmen for Obama when Obama ran the first time. And they called me and asked me if I wanted to help run sportsmen for Obama in Montana. Now, like, there's probably no way he was going to, like, even win in Montana. But
sure.
I was, the political side of me was like, all right, like, this would be something, and, like, these guys are out in Washington, D.C., and, they're friends of mine, and I will say yes. At the same time, McCain was running, if you remember this. Like, he was running against McCain. I love John McCain. Like, I really did, and I'd met him out in Washington, D.C.
Dude, he does – McCain seemed like he harkened back to just a time of decency. Like, he just always struck me as just a a really like decent, I mean, aside from the heroism, right?
Sure.
Like aside from talking about like being at POW camp and everything,
Yeah.
just the way he conducted himself was just like a good, decent person, man. It was a, yeah. I'm just to say, yeah, I liked McCain too. He seemed like a good dude.
I thought he was rad. And
Yeah.
He was working on climate change stuff before anybody was working on climate change on that side of the aisle, like at all. I remember meeting him out in DC and just, he's a short little dude. And he was walking down a hall and I saw him come and I kind of stepped in front of him and he had to like stop and he looked up at me and I just shook his hand. I said, "Thank you so much for what you're doing on climate change." And he looked up at me, he's like, "Oh man, appreciate it." So I had a connection to him and I swear to God, I probably would have voted for him, but there was a grizzly bear study that was going on in Montana at this time. And so we were trying to delist grizzly bears off of the endangered species list. And so you had to have an idea of what their population was. And so there was some ideas that we had like 300 to 500 bears. A friend of mine, who's my best friend since 4th grade, was participating in this study. There was like this hair sampling study, right, to get DNA.
Okay.
Through this study, they ended up finding out that there was like 900 bears there, like individuals, like because since they're doing hair studies, they can get down to the individual level. So the bears ended up, I mean, they're still kind of in the process of being delisted, but McCain got on the floor and was like, "This is the biggest piece of like pork and fluff in this country." And I was like, "McCain, yo, like there's so much money when these things are, and so many regulations when they're on the endangered species list. If we get them off, it's going to cost us less money. People are going to be able to hunt them, and these bears are going to be recovered like in a big way." And so I fundamentally disagree with him. And so that's kind of where I switched away from McCain.
Okay.
But yes, so I go and I run Sportsmen for Obama, I think in Montana, with a couple other friends that I have in Montana. He ends up losing in Montana, wins the election though, and it was my first like real start to play into politics. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Even knowing now that, I mean, like it hangs around my neck, like I'm some, like you said, like infiltrator. And again, knowing where I come from, my parents were involved in conservation. My dad was a lawyer for the Elk Foundation. Like I've been hunting and fishing since I was a little kid. I just happened to have helped, not even helped get him elected because he didn't win in Montana, but helped be a part of that whole situation. And to me, this monolithic thing that all hunters are Republicans, and if you are a Democrat, like you are anti-hunting, and it kind of blows my mind, right? And so at BHA, our membership is split in thirds: third Democrat, third Republican, third Independent. There's some, it's not exactly like that, but that's the way it breaks out year after year after year.
I'd say it feels like that too. Like that would, anecdotally, I would say it feels like that.
So to me, that's the country, right? Like when you think about our country right now. So, why then, as a Democrat, am I being ostracized just because I'm a Democrat, right? Like, look at the body of work that that's what I always talk to people about. Okay, so you're scared about me because I did this thing at one point. I also did stuff later for Senator Tester in Montana, who beat an absolute evil dude that would have been horrible for conservation, horrible for hunting, horrible for fishing. Denny Reberg, he beat him by like 5,000 votes, and I got to play a part in that race, and it was way more exciting because we won. But also, John Tester has been amazing since he's been in the Senate for the stuff that you and I care about. So that wasn't the only thing I ever did, but I think that like this idea, I think that hunting and fishing and conservation in general is one of these issues that crosses party lines. And so this scarcity, like this green decoy thing, which is what you're bringing up a little bit.
Yeah. It
started off that he's a Democrat and doesn't even hunt and fish and doesn't have your best interests in mind. Then it became, well, actually, he does hunt and fish, but he doesn't have your best interests in mind. And now I'm this like Democrat that's trying to take your guns away. And I'm like, this whole thing, and I found out the other day that whole campaign was paid for by oil and gas money. And the reason that they were paying that money, this was back when BHA had like 2,000 members, we were nothing, is that we were talking about responsible energy development on public lands, which didn't mean no energy development. It just meant that as you're doing that, do it in a phased way and not all development all the time at the same time. And so clean up your mess as you're going and then move on to the next, right? That's
Pay attention to migration patterns.
Like in the right place, right time, all these things, right? It's pretty common sense stuff. But they didn't like that, and obviously probably saw what BHA was going to become before maybe some others, and so that's when they started that campaign. But long story short, I think that Democrats, Republicans, independents hunt, and it's the one place that we can all come together and find a path forward that I think, and I don't want to be too Pollyannish about this, but hopefully breeds into other issues where we can find common ground, like this partisanship that we have in this country, this kind of just pounding at each other. I get it, but I also think that there's much more people in the middle, and maybe conservation and hunting and fishing can have us think about trying to find common ground, because I think that's exactly what we do in this country when it comes to conservation.
Yeah, no, dude, I do agree with you on that, man. I think it's folks from lots of different walks of life find value and respite and social and cultural identification, like in the woods and on the water and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And that the manifestations that are very different, right? But yeah, dude, it is and I definitely don't want to fall into this like where everyone's so divided, right thing. But like, man, it does feel like it's something particular to America, right? This idea that we would have access to this would be held in trust for everybody. And yeah, man, stuff does seem very precarious right now. And maybe that is something to hold or hang our hat on. Because, dude, I would tell you just with like my personal relationships, I mean, I'm definitely friends with folks, like friends, like I give a shit about them with folks because of BHA that I wouldn't have been otherwise, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's something that you can care about in unison, but you can care about a lot, totally. Right?
It's part of who we are.
Sure. Man, so that's an interesting question. So I've been, like the last couple of years, man, like I've been going out west, right? Like I never went out west, right? I never had any reason.
Never had to, because you have all these opportunities right here. Right?
Yeah. Also, no, that's not true. I mean, I did used to go out tour out there a little bit, but never, I didn't have like a real, I don't think I had understood the scope of the West. But so now I'm out there a lot, and Montana is having this like big, it feels like nationally, but then just specifically because of like BHA and Sitka, and like Bozeman is like hunting Hollywood now, right?
Los Angeles?
Yeah. So I'm just like out there. I know a bunch of people that live there now and stuff. Yeah. And so it's just a place I pay attention. I'm just aware of more now than I wasn't aware of it at all. 3 years ago probably. But man, I am so struck with how different it feels there. Like culturally, socially, it feels like a very different place than like the Delta, right?
In what way?
Well, I think that the land shapes the people that exist there, right? Especially people that have been there for a while, right? Like you get these, 8, 9, and 10 generations of people in a place, or 5 generations, right? To where they don't remember not being there. And just what's normal, what becomes normal to you, right? So like the flavors of a place, right? Like, the stuff you eat, the stuff that makes you like think about your grandma and like really feels like home to you, right? Like it's real different. Man, it does make me think about like just how weird America is, because this is like really like a lot of different countries put together, right? Like in Europe, this would be from Russia to the coast of Ireland,
right?
And we do have that thing that holds us together, but I also think that we're like real different. And so I would say one big thing I notice in Montana is there's a lot more space between people, right? Like big, open, just long you could drive a long time and not see a town or see a person or anything, right?
Absolutely.
They have these wide spots in the road because it's designed for people to be like, you got to pull over and sleep in the truck or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I noticed too, just I never saw police presence driving all across the West. It's not like, I mean, if you're in town, I saw a cop or something, but I'm just used to seeing police all the time, you know, sheriffs and highway patrol. That's very different. You know, obviously, like there's like very few brown, like black people in Montana, right? But then there's a lot of Native Americans, right? Like which is something that we are completely at a want for in Arkansas. Like you got to think about the history, right? Like Arkansas, this is like a big chunk of the Trail of Tears. It's like all of the Native Americans, or a large chunk of the Native Americans that were in this area, right? Chickasaw, Choctaw, they all got marched into Oklahoma, into the, you know, quote unquote Indian territory. Mm-hmm. So, you know, just like race relations are different, and I mean, hell, now just like the financial scope of stuff, right? I didn't see. Now, granted, where did I go? You know, I was in Bozeman, I was in Missoula, I was in. What's that old mining town? Butte, right?
Butte's awesome.
Butte was more
besides the pit. It's amazing.
Aside from that, but
more
my kind of feel, right? You know, a little rougher around the edges still.
Totally.
I don't think it's been so gentrified. But dude, I just didn't see poverty the way you would see it in the Delta.
Yeah.
You know, like there's people with dirt floors, like half the building's burnt out, and they're living in the other half. Really interesting to me, but yeah, it was a decidedly different feel. And so I'm just kind of dancing around and I'm not making a ton of sense, but I do wonder, like you've grown up in Montana, right? A man of what?
I'm one of those fifth generations. Yeah.
So like really deeply rooted there, right?
Yeah.
Man in your midlife, right?
Yeah.
Like
hopefully.
Let's hope, man. And this is probably way too big of a question. We can refine it, but like, man, what does America feel like to you? That's a question I think about a lot, because it feels different to me when I'm in different places, and that's a place that feels distinct. A lot of like here, where people are a lot closer together, it muddies a bit. You know, like Arkansas's different, but not unlike Mississippi. Like parts of Louisiana, right? Like parts of Missouri. Montana feels like something distinct to me. And I think that being rooted in that would influence how you know, the lenses through which you look at everything else. So like, what does America feel like to you? What's your like idea of it?
Oof. That's gigantic.
Yeah, it's a huge question, but like answer it any way you want to.
I mean, I think that's really interesting. So I think being that kid that grew up in Montana, rooted, as you say.
What part of Montana?
Western Montana. So I'm from Missoula.
Okay.
I was born in Helena.
Gotcha.
State capital, but then moved to Missoula when I was 5. So both my parents went to high school there. Both my grandparents were in Missoula. So that's like the mountainous part of the state, right? And it's the western part of the state. Then you get to the central Montana and you got like breaky country, and then you get like farther east and it's pretty flat. Mm-hmm. We have 3 different states almost in the state of Montana.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we do. And so there's a ton of like geographic diversity within my own home state. But as I grew up, you know, I was a mountain kid. And so as I've gotten the opportunity to travel around and I don't have mountains to reference, I really feel lost sometimes, you know, like I don't have references. Like I don't feel like I know where my place is because I just can't tell where I am necessarily. Yeah. And I think when I first started to travel, you know, there's a Steinbeck quote that when he wrote Charlie or Travels with Charlie, and it's something like, you know, for other states I have admiration, but with Montana it's love. And when you're in love, it's hard to describe. That's kind of the way I feel about Montana. And I would project that to other places that you're just not as cool as Montana. Like Montana is like the cream of the crop, right? But as I've had this job and other jobs, and I've been able to travel all over this country, I spent a lot of time down in Louisiana, and especially on the marsh, man. It was like we were working on a campaign to restore the Mississippi River Delta.
That's a special place.
Oh my God, dude! Like that dirt's still underneath my fingernails. Like I literally love that place and the people and the culture. But as I've gotten to travel, I've gotten to realize that there's many other really cool places in this country, you know, and it's because I get to go out and feel and touch things. Now, is it ever going to be my home state of Montana? Probably not. But that the different, as you described, not only like different cultures, but just different ecotypes. It's absolutely amazing what we have in this country. And a lot of that is still the way it is today because a lot of it's public land and public water. North Carolina is a great example. So when I go to North Carolina, I'm like ready to be kind of underwhelmed. You go to from the Outer Banks to the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there's like many different ecotypes in between those two. And there's a lot of public land there. I was just in Pennsylvania. There's a ton of public land in Pennsylvania. Ton of public land in New York. And it doesn't have to be all public land, but I think like the diversity of just like, again, like ecosystems in this country, and that thing that we talked about earlier, that binding factor that like those wildlife all belong to us. I think that's like America to me. Like it's the most democratic part about America is that the wildlife belongs to the people, which is universal, even if that's on private land. Like you are a private landowner, but you do not own that wildlife. Now, some people think they do, but ultimately they don't. Now, if you're in Texas and you got high fence, sure, that's a different situation because you really do own those wildlife with ear tags in their ears. But for majority, wildlife belongs to the people. And I think that maybe that's like this universal thing that binds us. I worry, my biggest probably worry is that people are becoming, like you talked about that 9% of only, people that hunt and fish in this country. More and more people are moving to cities. They're getting disconnected from the land, disconnected from the wildlife. And so America in general, I'm getting nervous about that. I'm getting really nervous about that because as more and more people are displaced from the land, they don't have that connection, and why do they care about it? And, I think it's...
Well, I think they stopped seeing human beings as participants in it.
Absolutely. And I think that participant thing instead of an observer, right? Like most of those people that are going to Yellowstone Park, they're observers. They're not participants, right? Where we are interacting with animals, fish and wildlife in a way different way than people that are just looking at them through binoculars. Not that that's the wrong thing. I even, birders, I'm a big, huge bird nerd.
Really?
I saw some cardinals. I'm wearing the cardinal hat, but I saw some cardinals. We don't have them out west.
Yeah, dude.
It was super rad.
Who was that for? Bianca Germain. She's a photographer. She's based in Colorado.
Okay.
And Lindsey Brown?
Yeah.
Lindsey's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
So two of them, we were down in Texas, and Lindsey's like, is that a cardinal over there? And I was like, yeah, it's like cardinal, But like, you don't even think about it. I've met dudes, Americans that have never seen a possum before. Mm-hmm. It blows my mind that they don't have possums in Montana, do they?
No.
Yeah.
It gets too cold.
Yeah, dude. There's a possum is just it's a despised animal.
Right.
They're so commonplace. They're so familiar. That idea of familiarity breeds contempt. But yeah, sorry to jump in on that, but yeah, dude, like I think you're absolutely right. And I think that exactly what you're talking about gets magnified within certain communities. Mm-hmm. Right? And then to even, I've talked about this with black folks, right? Like you got a population of people, 150 years ago, 95% of, whatever, some huge majority. I better not use numbers because someone will come get me. The majority of black people in America lived in the South. They lived in rural areas, and they were associated with agriculture, right? You go through the Great Migration and all that stuff, the terror in the 20s and the 30s and 40s and whatnot, right? This mass exodus out of the South. Now, most still, over 50% of black people live in the South, like what we would consider the South in America, right? But black people have become much more concentrated in urban areas, right? So, and especially the places where black folks moved to out of the South 100 years ago. It was like Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, right? Minneapolis, Baltimore, D.C., like whatever, Jacksonville, Florida, whatever these places are. And within a generation or two, like people like start to forget. It's like, dude, you've been here for 500 years, for 400 of them, right? Like we had our hands in the dirt, and now for 60 years, maybe your people have been out of it. And suddenly this is something you don't do. This is something that is, that you don't belong involved in, right?
It's like foreign.
Yeah. And it's really like, to me, it's like losing a birthright. You know, I'm not real big on that birthright stuff, but dude, I'm influenced by, American ethos and zeitgeist and all that stuff too. And, that idea of, individualism, that idea of like being able, even if you don't really, the idea that you could do it by yourself, right? The idea that you could go explore. I find those to be like very American ideas. I feel like they're rooted in the culture. I'd also say vigilantism is rooted in the culture. If you look at like every hero for the last 100 years, right? It's a vigilante, right? It's why you would never get rid of guns in America. It will never be Australia.
Totally.
Right? Like it's
unless I'm successful.
Yeah, unless land comes and gets it. Just the idea that, I don't even have to get into that, man. I've been working on some projects, and that's part of why I'm thinking about this idea of America. But also, what I really got struck by last year when I did my Turkey tour last year, and I spent several weeks out west living in a van and interacting with the land and the animals and the places, right? And just a lot of watching the topography change by myself and driving across places, right? And seeing what you're talking about, like Western Oregon, so different than Eastern Oregon.
Totally.
But just the idea that I could be like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to have a little hermit crab house, and I'm going to go to all these different places. And, walk into a chunk of woods by myself in East Oregon that I've never been to, that I've just been looking on my phone on Onyx. I know I'm looking at stuff, and I'm like, man, I feel like there's turkeys in there.
Yeah.
And go down there and get a gobble, right? Like, man, you want to talk about really leaning into that idea of like individualism, or like you can go do some stuff.
Go test yourself, right?
Yeah, man. Or you can still find a way to be that's not influenced by other people.
Like tethered.
Yeah, man. Like you're existing and you're participating and you're living kind of on your own terms, right? Like, look, I'm still driving on roads, right? Like, I still got a cell phone, all this other stuff, but I can be by myself. I can be by myself and like no one's around, and I can like wake up next to the Snake River, and there's like, I got this memory of waking up next to the Snake River at like 4 a.m, like all sleepy in this mist, and there's these mule deer like 20 yards in front of me. It looks like a Disney film, and there's like elk over here. And yeah, man, just like the relationship, I feel different because my relationship to the space is different. If I'm in the bayou, everything's really close. It's like being enveloped. To me, there's kind of like a safety to that humidity and that like everything's around you. And out there, I feel like a sense of vulnerability. Not only is it definitely, it's not it's mine, but in a tenderly kind of way, right? Like it'll never be mine the way like a swamp in East Arkansas would be, right? And so I feel vulnerable, and I feel like it's big and it's open, and there's I feel like I get better and stronger and more capable by doing that kind of stuff.
Okay, so you feel very comfortable in a place that you know best.
Sure.
And so I have places in Montana where I feel super comfortable. Now I could spend a lifetime of exploring in Montana and never even scratched the surface. And you kind of talked about that down here in Arkansas
Sure.
as well, right? But when I told you when all that time I was spending down in Louisiana, in the marsh, there's dudes down there that are 6th, 7th generation Cajuns.
Yeah.
They feel at home down there, right? And they're in this marsh, and that, you know, that could be a whole discussion that we talk about in the land of used to be's and how that place has been disappearing, you know, since the 1920s. But we'd be in the marsh and we'd be zipping along in this boat. I got no mountains for reference.
Yeah.
Like if they had a heart attack and died, and I had to get out of there,
Yeah.
I'd be terrified.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm lost, like literally lost, both mentally and physically. Like bad for me. In Montana, I get lost. I start walking downhill, hit a creek, walk along that creek. It's going to hit a bigger creek at some point. I'm going to hit a river. I'm going to find people, right? But out there in that marsh. So I think that I'm hearing you, and I wonder though if it's newer to you, right, as you're exploring, and so it feels like that you're not as comfortable there because it's not as familiar. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, if you took me down to the bayou right now and said, drop me off at some little duck hole, we're like, I'm gonna be back in a few hours, I think I might be terrified in some ways, you know, because
dude, I mean, I could kill somebody just taking them out to the middle of flooded timber. I mean, that's the easiest stuff ever to get lost in. It all looks exactly the same,
but you know it, right? Like, you know it. And so like, do you get lost very often?
No, man, but I'm like, I really, man, without Onyx, I'd be lost all the time. Like, this sounds like an ad for that company, but dude, it's just like the greatest thing.
It's a game
ever.
changer.
You know, man, so that's a good observation. I think it's probably like all of the above, right? Mm-hmm. I think that, man, I've just in the last couple of years, I've been just some breathtaking places. I've been up in these mountains in Utah, like in January in the snow, dude, just like real different than anything I'd ever done before. Just amazing. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, out west, there's like 2 places I've been that I was like, dude, I could be out here. This place feels like it resonates with me. And it was that Willamette River Valley in Oregon. Mm-hmm. Right now, also, I've only been there like in the spring, so it's just like lush and green and beautiful, right?
Yeah, come on.
But then also, man, driving across like everything that used to be like Nez Perce, like that eastern Oregon, tip of Washington, across the panhandle of Idaho, man. Yep. That place, I was driving across Idaho and I was like, dude, I just want to like sink back into this stuff.
It's the wildest place in the lower 48,
dude,
right there.
I'll be there in like 6.5 weeks, man.
What are you doing?
I'm turkey hunting my way, like Texas, California, Oregon, and then I'm gonna bear hunt western Montana.
Okay.
And Idaho's still up a little bit in the air. Depends on. I just got like a chunk of time in there, but I'd like to turkey hunt for a few days in that panhandle.
Lots of turkeys there,
dude. I'm also kind of. I mean, I'll be real with you. I'm scared, man. Like the idea of a grizzly bear, like, and I never even thought to be scared of it because it was like never a possibility. But I had a little bear encounter this year where I was like skinning a bear, and then like a way bigger bear came in on me, and it was like 10 minutes to dark. And these were black bears, you know? And I was like, I yelled at that bear, and it didn't like run off right away. And man, I was puckered up.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, these grizzlies seem like they could cramp your style a little bit.
So I've grown up the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is like 1.1 million acres. It's about an hour from my house. Super wild place. It's my favorite piece of public land. It's had grizzly bears in it for a long time. Mm-hmm. When I hunt there, it's my senses, I was talking about this earlier with somebody. It's like my spidey senses are so much different, right? Because so like you're observing things in a different way. Every little sound you hear, like it's exhausting in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Because
you're on point all the time. I love that. I really love it. I love that they're on the landscape. This place where we've been hunting for decades. knock on wood, we've never had a problem with a grizzly bear, but we've been around them the entire time. And so these bears,
Like laid eyes on them, or you just know they're there?
I've only seen a few grizzlies in the wild, but know they're there. Like when it rained today, like it did here, you have a deluge of rain up there. That next morning, you'll see tracks of grizzly bears that came 50 yards from camp, went around you, and then came right back and 50 yards later.
Dude, that's scary.
It's super scary.
Yeah.
So they're around you all the time. And I've heard them, before. Like you've heard things, seen tons of bear grass ripped up, and like that's when you're like, holy crap, like somebody's been either feeding here or something's buried here.
Mm-hmm.
The one interaction I had with a grizzly bear was terrifying. I never want to be that close to a grizzly bear ever again. And now it's not just the Bob Marshall, but it's all of western Montana. It's all the Panhandle. Like you should expect for grizzly bears to be around everywhere.
Yeah.
Full circle back to this John McCain thing earlier. That study that came out and had these bears recovered at like 900 bears in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. They should be delisted right now. And part of the reason they should be delisted is the bears that are, I think, causing the most problems. And I don't hunt outside of Bozeman where they've got a lot more interaction, especially bow hunters with grizzly bears. But I think most of the bears that are causing problems are either older bears or younger bears. And they're getting themselves in trouble. And those are the ones that we should be hunting and taking care of. Because the majority of those other bears want nothing to do with us, man. Nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
And, but, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, let's get rid of all the bears. I'm like, man, there's this wildness. I mean, it's part of the BHA, logo. When I first came to BHA, I was like, man, there's grizzly bears are hardly in anywhere. Like, why is that our logo? And then I kind of started thinking about it, and they just represent the true wild that we still have in this country. And so that ability, and now that they're going out from the Bob Marshall, they're going into these other still wild places. Like, I think they're a symbol of that. And I really welcome them on the landscape, but we need to delist them so that we can manage them.
So that, and so the deal with like grizzlies too, man, is like folks down here aren't like even aware of it, right? It's like nothing to even consider. But like you live in a place where like you're talking about they encountered people, right? Like it's same with wolves, right? Like this is the part of the country where, and it's not just that those are the places for grizzlies and wolves. Those are the places where like a few hung on and they're starting to reintroduce them. But those critters used to be ubiquitous, right? Grizzly
Absolutely.
Used to be everywhere.
Out on the plains, those bears,
yeah.
Like Lewis and Clark talked about those big bears that were 1,000 pounds plus. They're out in the middle of the plains.
Yeah. And just like really like how quickly that stopped being the case.
Yeah, really like a blip in history, like in time. Right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it is too. I imagine that the deal with grizzlies is, people obviously have a very different relationship. The public has a different relationship with bears. I think largely because of, teddy bears, Winnie the Pooh, whatever. Like there's this anthropomorphizing of bears. And people feel it's the thing and I haven't had bad reactions, but it's the thing I've gotten the most reaction for. From just people generally is like the last couple of years taking black bears. And, one of the questions you get a lot is like, do you eat it? Right. And, it's like, well, one, like this whole black bear bonanza, this little cooking thing. Like, dude, I'm talking like, I can speak to black bears, right? Top shelf meat. I mean, top shelf. I prefer it to venison. I'd rather have it any day than venison. Mm-hmm. I think with grizzlies, I mean, I don't know if this is a dirty secret, man, but I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of grizzly bears, brown bears that get killed, don't get eaten by people. I think they're
not. It's not required.
Yeah, and I've also, I've heard people say, "Oh, you can't eat them; they're full of parasites or whatever." I've also read like some Teddy Roosevelt. You ever read like when Teddy Roosevelt was out there, like on his kind of like walkabout. In the areas we're talking about. And he's like hunting, he's like gathering specimens and skins for like the Smithsonian. Mm-hmm. And they talk about like killing a grizzly bear cub and how how tender and delicious it was.
I've never heard that story.
Yeah, man. Dude, Roosevelt's got some.
He was a horrible hunter, but he did a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, man. Just there's just some good, some bad, but like all very interesting if you like looking at his writings, and a lot of it's just like public canon, so you can just download it for free online.
Yeah.
But dude, I just can't imagine. I imagine if you got, I would imagine that if you got an interior bear that wasn't living off of like zombie salmon, right?
Like rotting flesh. Yeah.
I mean, but that's eating the same thing that a black bear is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into the idea of it because I'm like, dude, that'd be like 10 black bears worth of meat. You know, like but even the fact that I've killed black bears, man, like a grizzly bear would feel different. You know, like it would, there's a magnitude, I think, to it, right? Like it's an animal that really kind of it helps you gain perspective, right? Like we feel so powerful and we feel so able-bodied, and there's nothing you can do against it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That scene from the Revenant, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah,
where that bear's breathing over the top of him and he's throwing him around like he's nothing. Like I've watched bears, move boulders that would take you and I with both of our legs, maybe even to budget, an inch, where they've got like one paw and they're just flipping it over like it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
But I think going back to the eating thing, I've eaten grizzly.
Oh, have you?
Mm-hmm. There was somebody that brought some down from Alaska.
What was your verdict?
I mean, it was just fine. I think majority of that is how you cook it, right?
Sure.
Because you hear this all the time being a duck hunter. Oh, duck's horrible.
Yeah.
And I always laugh at them and be like, dude, somebody overcooked that thing and like it was not good, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's probably how you cook it. But I think the thing, when we do delist these bears, if I ever get the chance to hunt them, I think it would be like a privilege to eat one. Partly because you're embodying that spirit, right? Of that wildness that you're talking about, that is just, they're the biggest, baddest boys in the woods, like by far.
Yeah.
By far. And like within the Native American culture, like they don't really want them hunted. Mm-hmm. They don't want to eat them because of what they mean to them spiritually. And that's not, I'm not going to universally say that, right? Like, I'm not going to, but a lot of, a few Native Americans that I've talked to, like they're really against like the hunting side of it and really against the eating side of it, just because of the spiritual connection. Mm-hmm. I look at it in a different way, where I would like to be spiritually connected to that animal and actually eat it and internalize it and feel like I'm getting some of that wildness inside of me, And a lot of people in Montana are super against like any kind of hunting of grizzly bears. There's a lot of people in Montana that like don't want any grizzly bears on the landscape at all. And I think it's it's one of these species that requires big, large tracts of land like you're talking about. And I think it's emblematic of those places and the wildness. And I think that we can figure out a way to live with bears, but we need to delist them and so that we can manage them in a proper way. And I think they're back. I don't think we're ever going to go through this extirpation. Thank you. It's still early in the day, but I can't say that word. But I think that like we're never going to do that again, and they're recovered multitudes of what they were supposed to be recovered just to delist them anyways. And so I think it's time to delist those bears and get them, keep them on the landscape, and so people appreciate them versus are trying to fight with them. Are folks
only hunting them in Alaska? Can you hunt them in the lower 48?
No. Mm-mm. You could for a little bit in Wyoming until there was a lawsuit, and then that got stopped. So they were hunting, I can't remember what the numbers were, but they could hunt, a certain amount of bears, and it was like all on a quota system and very regulated through a permit system. And then once you hit that quota, it was over. But that was only maybe 2-3 seasons that happened, and then that's been shut down.
Yeah, man. What you were talking about. So, like, my first thought was, I could hear someone you talking about like embodying the spirit of the wild, right?
Yeah.
And so, I could see someone being like, "Man, this is some hokey shit," right? But dude, there is a thing with bears. bears feel very different to me, and I would say that I think I have a reverence for them that doesn't make killing them and eating them like that's not a perversion of that. But if I'm gonna kill the bear, like I gotta eat all of it. I mean, like all of it. Take care of it. Think about it a little bit, when I'm doing it. Now it's normalized in my life, right? Like pull a roast out, blah blah.
Sure.
But I always take. There's always a moment to take stock of it. I think they interact with the landscape differently, right? And I think that's what it is. I mean, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast or not, man. My baby that was born 2 months ago, like when he was born, man, like he came out, right? And they take him, they do it skin to skin, so they put it right on the mama. Yeah. And so, probably 5 seconds after this kid came out of my wife, dude, I put a bear claw in his hand. Like he's like, and I put a bear claw in his hand from this bear that I killed. Cause it just felt special, right, man? Like it felt like, man, maybe I want him to do and be whatever he wants to be, man, but I'd like to root him, and I did, man. I fed Marianne a lot of bear meat when she was pregnant with him. I'm like, dude, I want this boy like to be grown with bear meat. And like I ate the heart from that bear with like some people that I felt like would give a shit.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
That's that respect special thing though, that I think that like, just as you described that's part of the problem I think that we have in our hunting culture right now is we're talking less about this hokey shit. Mm-hmm. And, if you go on Instagram, none of that hokey shit's really happening, right? And that's how the general public sees you and I as hunters. But what you just described and how, like, you feel connected to that animal, come on, man. Like, that is, like, that's a beautiful thing and something that you're passing on and probably are participating on for, like, that's been going on for eons.
Yeah.
Eons, and that reverence, right? Like when in those cave paintings, and it's of a bear, they revered the bear, like you said. They're like, just, we can tell that they're different. I don't know. It's like when you skin them, they kind of look like a person a little bit with that musculature, Like, that's like that connection there.
I think it's that one. So like one, we have that like mammalian familiarity with them, right?
Yeah.
Two, I think there's a dexterity that they move with that like a cervid doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. Like they can articulate their fingers and like their muscles and all that stuff, right? And they can. There's also when you see them just in their natural habitat, like they roll and they loaf, and there's like there can be a interpreted playfulness there, sure. Right? And I also think it's the fact that they do not exist as a prey animal. I think a lot of times people think that like bears are stupid, and that's not it at all. It's one, they don't have great vision, right? So their ability to smell is insane, but they don't have great vision. So if the wind's in your favor, you can actually get relatively close to them, especially if they're like hoovering up acorns or berries or something. But they move through the woods. There's like a nonchalantness to it, right? They're just not like a deer, like a white-tailed deer was like most people think about when they think about hunting in America, right? It's just like by its nature, it's like a terrified animal. Like it's always looking down, looking up, eating, looking up, right? Stomping its foot, sniffing the wind. Mm-hmm. It's jittery, mm-hmm. right? Like they're ducking arrows. Like they just are keyed up all the time. And a bear isn't like that. And I'd even say there was the bear that I got this year, man. I saw it and I got like keyed up, and then I kind of relaxed. I said, that bear's gonna come through. Like you're gonna get the shot. Just relax. That bear's not looking up. It's not bothered. It's not worried about you. And I think it feels it feels like a bit more like being a fly on the wall, as opposed to, especially like Arkansas, where most of the deer get killed over corn, right? Like you're sitting there keyed up, waiting, expecting to see an animal behave in a way that might not be entirely natural. But like just intersecting, spot and stalking, like a prince of the woods, like it's gonna be a different experience.
It's funny you say prince, because I was sitting here thinking as you were talking like that, like almost like royalty, and so it's really funny.
It's regal, man.
It's like and like that air of not having to care. Like I think I've never thought about that way, but nothing preys on them, right?
Yeah,
like,
us. We're the only ones, or a bigger one of them.
Totally, and so like that's the only thing that they have to really worry about.
Sure,
and I think black bears in grizzly country have to worry about grizzlies, and that's where that grizzly is just kind of one step up from a
What's a big boar black or grizzly bear?
I mean,
worried about
those nothing. I mean, like if they go across the highway and get hit by a semi truck or a train, other than that, nothing.
Is is that like commonplace for a grizzly bear to get hit by a car?
It happens every single year.
Okay.
But there was a big, huge boar in Lincoln, Montana that's like about an hour east of Montana on Missoula on Highway 200 up to Blackfoot. Mm-hmm. He was an older bear, and he got hit by a semi. He's now stuffed in the Forest Service office there. He was 950 pounds. Wow. And this was in the spring when he's light.
Yeah.
And his teeth were all ground down. I mean, he was an old bear. And so, we're getting those bears I talked about with Lewis and Clark that were kind of going out in the 1,000-pound plus. That's these bears that retracted back into the Bob Marshall. Mm-hmm. And so especially on the eastern side where the plains meet the mountains, that's where those big bears are living. And they're coming out now and they're following these river systems, right? And so they have these riparian zones that they can be pretty safe in. They're only probably traveling at night, and so they're getting, 200, 300 miles away from like that core habitat, which means again that they're recovered. But that also means that we have these 1,000-pound plus bears roaming around, people, and that aren't expecting them to be there. And so, again, I'm so glad they're back on the landscape. I think they're regal, and they define wildness, and I respect them. And they need to be delisted from the endangered species list, just so that we treat them like any other animal.
Do you think? I actually don't know. So I think I understand the public zeitgeist feeling about like not doing it, but I would imagine are there other like more nefarious reasons to keep them listed?
There's
like someone getting rich off of it?
No,
or?
well, I think there's a lot of people there's like I would say the same thing with wolves, especially around Yellowstone. It's like these things have names. And there's a lot of
attractions.
Yeah, there's a lot of money that's being made off of, grizzly bear 455 that has an ear and it's a tag in its ear, like was collared at one point when everybody knows who it is, right? Like that bear feels like it belongs to them. And yes, there's some money that's being made off of that. I think the biological reasons that they're talking about climate change in particular, and there's some food that they eat that is no longer in abundance, and I get that. But this, bears they eat everything, man. And so and grizzly bears in particular, and so as you take one food source away, they can go over to another, right? And to me, that the science piece of not wanting to delist them is a red herring. And I think it's just people are using the science that is partially true, or all the way true, but not specific. If grizzly bears only ate, pine bark, pine cone, like the little nuts that come out of those, white bark pine, then they'd be in big trouble. But they eat everything. And so if of all the animals, as long as we have big open like landscapes to be on, they will figure out a way to survive. And they eat bugs like crazy, especially in the spring, right? Mm-hmm. And they'll get into a huckleberry patch and sit and just gorge themselves on huckleberries, And so they are eating all sorts of different things. And so I think people don't want them to be hunted. and so they don't want to ever see them delisted. And I think that's doing the Endangered Species Act a disservice. Why should we have the endangered species list if we're not trying to recover species and then take them off of the list? That's the whole idea, is put them in the emergency room when they're in trouble, which grizzly bears were. Now they've recovered. It's time for them to get out of the emergency room. It doesn't mean that it's like, shoot them all now, right? Like I think that it's doing a disservice to the Endangered Species Act to keep them on the list. And so delisting them is not only important for the bears and the management of those bears, but I think it's also important to just that mechanism that we have to protect wildlife in this country.
And then is it that you think it's the same argument with wolves, or a similar argument?
I mean, wolves, I would say yes. Just there's just some people that, love wolves and think they're gorgeous and they should never be hunted. The fecundity rate, so the amount of babies that wolves have compared to grizzly bears is like night and day. And so we have to pay way more attention to grizzly bears as we delist them to make sure that, like, if there's 20 bears that get hit by cars next year, and then hunters, let's say we can hunt them and we kill 15, and then a couple bears get in trouble and we got to kill them because they're around people. Like, we have to really pay attention to those populations to make sure that we're maintaining those populations. Wolves, man,
they have big litters.
Big litters, man. Like, so their fecundity rate, their ability to reproduce and replace themselves is so much higher than grizzly bears. Grizzly bears they got to be 2 or 3 years old before they can even have babies. And they'll have, a pair of cubs. They got them for a year and a half, 2 years, and they can, they go in and have another. Where wolves are doing that every single year.
Yeah.
So to me, wolves are a totally different animal. There's a lot of angst around wolves. I'll tell you this quick story. I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's important for people to listen to this. So as wolves, were reintroduced in Montana, but also were coming back naturally, as you described, they got a huge bad rap. And they're toothy animals, and the big bad wolf, we've all heard about since we were little kids. And so they come back, and there's a spot where I hunt elk down the East Fork of the Bitterroot, which is about an hour and a half from my house. The elk population down there, timing-wise, when these wolves came back, just crashed, like absolutely crashed. And so where did the fingers get pointed? They got pointed at the wolves, like immediately, which I understand. Wolves are new on the landscape. So instead of just knee-jerking and saying it's all the wolf problems, we, with my little local rod and gun club, Hellgate Hunters and Anglers, the Elk Foundation, or Valley County's Wildlife Association, got together, pulled some money together, and said, let's actually do a study and see what's actually going on. So when the population crashed, there had been a major fire, like scorched earth fire, like burning all the duff, like it's nothing but dirt left on the ground. There were so many elk down there. The last 2 weeks of the season, you could kill, if it was brown, it was down, so you could kill a bull or a cow. I remember in one week,
they were just all pushed into one spot?
Yes, as soon as like the snow was driving them down. Not in one spot necessarily, but they're driving them down from high elevation.
Gotcha.
So it's easier to get to. But the population was so high, this was right before the crash. Like, I remember one weekend we killed 200 elk. Not we, but like we, the people, killed 200 elk that went through that check station. So all these different factors are happening. So we do this study. It was all predator study. And so they looked at it for, I think it was like 3 years. And they found out that it was actually black bears that were having the biggest effect on these elk population, because in the spring, when those elk are dropping calves, you're talking about that amazing smell they'd have, they'd go smell these calves and just kick their ass. And so all these kill sites that they were finding with calves were all black bear related. Then it was mountain lions, and then wolves was third. So they got that information out to the public. People were like, oh, well, let's start killing more bears. Let's start chasing more mountain lions with dogs. And, if we can kill a wolf, let's kill a wolf, though they're very cryptic and very hard to hunt. At the same time, that fire I talked about, now it's 10 years later from that fire. Browse, so the food for elk is like amazing. Amazing. And so they got all this food there. We had to shut the season down, so we're not we're like very highly reduced it because the population was down, so we're not killing 200 in a weekend. Now that population's on the rise again. But that science, and like I say this because again, wolves get such a bad rap. And have they influenced elk populations? Absolutely. But in this case in particular, it was the black bears that were having the biggest effect on that population. And once the people found that out, we could change our management regime a little bit, or like our emphasis. And lo and behold, and I'm not going to say one of those factors again, like that fire was a major factor. But all those things are now working together. Elk population is back on the rise. And so, I tell that story because, again, like wolves get such a bad rap. Are elk using the landscape in different ways? Absolutely. I'm not a great elk hunter. I've killed a handful of elk in my life. But I have friends that are amazing elk hunters. Wolves, no wolves, they still kill elk. And it's because they're really good elk hunters.
Yeah.
So
what's your hunting? What's your bread and butter?
I'm such a generalist, man. I mean, I think that I always say this. If I could only do one thing, I would waterfowl hunt. Mm-hmm. And that's because it reminds me of like being in the blind with my dad when I was young. Yeah. I think watching the marsh wake up in the morning, I think it's amazing. Yeah. I think watching the dog work is absolutely amazing. I think being able to sit there with you and like talk, just like the camaraderie is amazing. I also think it's, I have there's spots that I have to work at to get into, but a lot of the spots I go to, like I can go hunt them in the morning and be done by noon and then, back to work in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. I can't do that with elk. I can't do that with, I can do that with whitetail, but I can't do that with elk in particular. So I think as a sense of the connection for me, but then also the sense of ease in some ways, that I can do it all the time, is a big thing for me. But, I've killed moose, I've killed bighorn sheep, I've killed antelope, both whitetails and mule deer.
Where'd you kill a bighorn at?
So that was just east of Missoula, and that was one of my most arduous hunts of all time. It's a long story, but
how hard was it to get that tag?
It's super hard. So the guy, there was only 2 tags in this district that were given out. Mm-hmm. Myself and this other guy, Kevin Brown, got it. He's like 75 years old. He had 30 points. I had 7. I'd killed a bighorn ewe 7 years before that, and then been able to get 7 points and got it. So I got super lucky. That's the beauty of Montana's system, is it doesn't you don't have to get a certain level of points. Mm-hmm. You're eligible from the first time you can draw. Now with 1, you don't have as much chance, but at 7 I had more.
Is that just like you got put in the lottery 7 times? Yeah. Okay, so it's not about you accumulating a bunch. I got you. It's just I
have more chances.
The more points you have, the more chances you have.
But yeah, that hunt, it took me 18 days. I rolled my truck, totaled my truck, on the 7th day. That wasn't 18 days in a row, but 18 days total. And then at one point I had a bighorn in my sights. I'm leaning up against this ponderosa, got a perfect rest, take my gun off safety. 1, 2, 3, as I'm pulling the trigger, that branch that I was on, I think I leaned into the tree, but it broke as I pulled the trigger. I go ass over tea kettle down this steep mountain.
Oh my God.
Dust, dirt everywhere. Gun did go off, but it was safe as soon as, I pulled the trigger. Uh-huh. Get up, looked for blood for the next day and a half, never found anything. Went to areas I knew that they were bedding, never found any blood at all, and finally figured out that I could go, chase them again, and ended up killing not a gigantic ram, but like a 6.5, 7-year-old ram.
Dude, that's still those critters are really coveted just because there's so few opportunities.
Yeah, well, they're so cool, dude.
Yeah, they're like a whole nother thing. I'm kind of dancing around a fascination with sheep because they're just body wise, right? They're like so stout. They're different.
They're different. They taste amazing. It's kind of like this sweet taste, if that's the way I describe it. And so I killed that ewe first, and now that I've killed this ram, I've been putting in for a ewe. I haven't gotten it since I got that ram. You're supposed to wait 7 years until I can apply again for a ram, but I can apply for a ewe again right away. Okay. Though I would burn my points if I got that ewe.
Just because it tastes better?
I just want to taste it, man. It's so good. And if you look at the mining camps that were going out west, they would always go after sheep, and partly because of they taste delicious, but they're not scared of you, and they ball up almost like fish, and so as a market hunter that's trying to provide meals for your mining camp, they were easy to hunt.
Okay.
And so we did they were very successful at hunting those animals and, push them into the recesses of.
So that's why they're so hard now, just because the ones that are left went to the impenetrable places.
Totally. And we knocked those populations down a lot too. So, but yeah, they're an amazing animal. Yeah. They're just so stocky. And then that, you've probably seen videos of them like hitting heads together, right? I mean, I've got, the skull and those horns, and I mean, it's heavy, and to think that those things are carrying that around all the time, and they just, we talked about kind of the royalty of like the grizzly bears. I think like bighorn sheep are kind of like the royalty of the ungulates. I mean, they're just an amazing animal. The places they live, I wouldn't have gone to some of these places where I chased them around unless I was chasing them around. And I thought it was. I'd say the same thing about mountain goats. I've not killed a mountain goat. I had a mountain goat tag the year my daughter was born, and didn't end up killing one, partly because my wife told me I couldn't spend the night.
Sure.
I could go out there during the day, and I'd always find them and then have to be turning around in dark. And but the places these animals live are just so wild, and not the places that you would normally go. And so I think they get you to do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah. And you can find some stuff out about yourself doing that.
Yes.
Shit, man. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know where James is at, but I got to go to Walmart and get some corn husk, man. Start making tamales. But yeah, so tomorrow you'll be at the Black Bear Bonanza.
Yeah.
And then day after that, go back to Missoula. And then what? Just bebopping around the country.
We got Rendezvous.
Yeah, Rendezvous this year. 2
weeks in Missoula. St. Patrick's Day is going to be sweet. We got a brew fest on Friday, March 17th.
Cool.
It's like a Friday, March 17th.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy. After that, then I head out I'm actually going down to St. Louis for the North American Wildlife Conference.
Okay.
But it's before. They're not playing yet. It's still during spring training, and so I'm not going to get to. This is my one chance to go see a game. I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And then what do I got? I got like a DC trip and a couple other things, and then yes, I'm traveling around the country all the time. But it's one of the things. The last thing I guess I'll leave folks with is why am I in Arkansas right now? It's for the Black Bear Bonanza in particular, but it's also to support this chapter. What they are doing, what they did with Pine Tree, what they're going to be doing with some inaccessible public land that will be announced soon. They're doing it all as volunteers.
Yeah.
This Black Bear Bonanza already has 500 tickets sold.
Yep.
And who knows who's going to show up at the door because it's supposed to be really nice tomorrow. Like what they're doing here in Arkansas, I'm just trying to support, man, and just come down and say thank you. It's also a way for me to, as I was talking about earlier, like I'm not going to get to hunt or fish while I'm here, but like to see the landscape, and so I know more what it's about. Mm-hmm. And like talking to folks like you, that like when you talked about the plethora of opportunities that are here in Arkansas, like I didn't know that as a kid coming from Montana.
Sure, yeah.
So
man.
it's I'm learning a lot while I'm here.
I say pound for pound, I'd put it up against anywhere.
Yeah,
I mean an elk, a black bear, an alligator. Oh,
those alligators. That's one species. Like I was talking about grizzly bears that terrify me. Those alligators that can be in like a couple inches of water. You don't even know they're there. And they can be 20 feet long. Like that's terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me.
It's like it's also like a different kind of, I think it makes a different part of your brain tingle too. Like that reptile.
Oh yeah.
Back when we were monkeys, like going to get a drink of water kind of stuff. But no, dude, it's a cool place, man. I know you were going to try weren't you trying to duck hunt or something?
I was going to try to come down in January, and it just didn't work out. But, you talked about flooded timber. I've hunted ducks down here once. Went to Stuttgart, for the whole craziness. Sure. And what do they got? Like quack radio there. Like, it's like the duck culture there is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I had a buddy, and I was like, man, I really want to go hunt flooded timber. And he's like, all right. So we stayed at his little trailer house, and in the morning we got on our ATVs, and it's dark out, and we go, and then we get to this water, and we're going to the water. I'm like, okay, this is like we're starting to get to where we're supposed to be. And sun comes up, and we're around like there must have been oaks 12 oaks, and then in front of like a flooded like pea field.
Oh yeah.
So like, we had a rad hunt. Like
Sure.
I remember that there was big, huge groups of teal that came in, and a bunch of mallards. But I still have yet to do that classic, like kind of stand up against the tree. And I don't even need to like hunt. I just want to see it and what it's like. You know, I've got some places back home, like river bottoms that are all cottonwoods, and so those birds do have to come in hot, right? Like they really have to drop. Nothing again though that I think, you know, that I would see down here, but I want to come back so bad.
And that's hard, dude. Honestly, like what you're looking for is it's hard to guarantee somebody because it's so pressured down here, and that stuff is in such demand. But yeah, no, dude. When you do it right, like especially on public land, because there is just you feel a little bit more pride because it's just. You had to usually, like for me, it's not that I beat somebody. I said I outsmarted some people. I found a place some people didn't know about or didn't want to work to get to.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, it's a magical thing. And I'll tell you what else I realized too is that it's like to me, that's what duck hunting is. And then everything else is like, it can be really, really awesome. Like just be the best thing ever and like worth traveling for and worth doing. But it's not that, you know, it's not that thing. But that's just, man, that's what having a home is, right? Like your home should be that to you, right? Like your home, your wife, you know, like your children, you know, like there's all this other really rad, awesome stuff that I want to avail myself of. But you know, at the end, you get down to that core. You get down to the stuff that really roots you and holds you.
Makes you appreciate it, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
And again, like that quote, you can have admiration for these other places. Yeah. But home is love, man. And like it's really hard to describe, but when you're in it, you know it, right? Yeah. It just, there's I think for me, man, it's really like a matter of comfort and ease. You know, like there's a way to move in flooded timber. Like there's a way to walk that it's like you kind of slide your foot along, you kind of shuffle, but you can do that really effectively. But you do that because it gives you that extra half a second to feel, see if you can hit a beaver stop, if there's a branch, if that's, you know, the stuff that stays wet all the time is you'll sink in. The stuff that was hard bottomed and only gets wet for 2 months is like rock solid. You can walk around on that. So it's just like discerning all that with your foot as you're sliding them. And the only way to learn how to do that is just to have a bunch of shitty mornings where you're stuck or you hit a beaver run or whatever. Getting wet. Yeah, what happens? Anyway, well, Land Tawney, perhaps the greatest name that has been on the podcast yet. Folks can, I'm sure, follow your exploits on Instagram. Yeah, it's easy. And then just backcountryhunters.org is the organization. Yeah. And man, good value, man. Like a good value for joining. What is it? It's like $35? $35. Yeah, man. I think you usually get like a hat or a T-shirt. And right now, we just got rid of this, but you had like that Mountain Tough fitness thing. It was like worth like $250 like that you got. But you get one time I signed up and then I got a gift certificate for like a membership cost. So then like my next year was free too. Dude, I mean like it really does work out to be like nothing in the scheme of things. Like if you're hunting and fishing, like everything you buy is like more than $35, right? You get the magazine 4 times a year. You get a really I didn't even mention backcountry. You get connected to like the community, right? Yeah, it's a good group of folks, man. Like what would I say, man? Like I am not a joiner. Like I'm not a joiner. I don't want to be part of your club, just whatever it is. And hell, I was on the board in Arkansas for 2 years on this thing. You know what I mean? Like you can feel good about it, right? Like if you don't want to get a bunch of Sitka and First Light, right? If you don't want to run it, you don't want a flat brim, like, yeah, there's little cultural touchstones everything has, man, but I'm telling you, dude, like I know some like really great people that see the world really differently than I do.
that like I care about, and I'm pretty sure they care about me. And it's, man, it is nice. It's nice to not be bumping heads with somebody all the time, right? Just to remember that you can see the world very differently in a lot of ways from somebody and still have things in common and still feel like those people that are different than you are part of your community.
Totally.
And BHA is good for that. But all right, Lan, well, thanks a bunch, dude.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoyed it.
Hey, thank you so much for listening all the way through to this episode of the Black Duck Revival podcast. As always, produced by me, Jonathan Wilkins, and Brian Sachs. Hey guys, follow me on Instagram if you want to follow along with the process of turning my, big 15-seater van into a dedicated mobile hunting rig. There's a story highlight. You can see everything from start to finish on there. I'm in the middle of the process of finishing that out to get it ready for next month for Turkey Tour. And Turkey Tour has actually turned into turkey/spring bear hunt tour. So the plan now is to hunt Texas, probably stop in New Mexico, then get to California, Oregon, Idaho, and then when I cross over into Montana, spend 5-6 days, something like that, doing like a combo kind of hunt. So I'll be turkey hunting in the morning, and then after midday into the late reaches of sunlight at that high elevation. Northern latitude, I guess is what I'm talking about. But anyway, man, it's like it stays light till like 10 o'clock at night. So then I'll hunt the rest of the evening for black bears and hopefully come out with a bear from Montana and a turkey. So follow along with that whole process over at Instagram. You can check out the website, which we will be making some changes to soonish. And that website is just blackduckrevival.com. And I also usually ask you guys to tell somebody about the podcast. So I'm going to stick on trend with that. Please tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell an acquaintance about the podcast. Leave a review, either just like a 5-star or a written review. That helps a ton on the algorithm. And we will see you guys next time.